Welcome in, everybody, to the Freshman Podcast. I'm EJ Manuel.
I'm Dr. Myron Roll.
And again, we're just here to have some fresh takes, some fresh ideas, and certainly some fresh conversations. So, let's jump right into it, man. First off, give us a the feedback on what's been going on in life lately.
Yeah, life's been good, brother. Life's been very good. As you know, I was in Boston at Massachusetts General Hospital, Harvard, doing my 7 years of neurosurgical residency. That's done.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Clap it up.
Yeah. It's a little applause up in here. Congrats, man.
It was a long road, brother. I mean, I wanted that for a long time.
Absolutely.
Ever since I read Ben Carson's book, Gifted Hands, I said that neurosurgery was going to be the move for me. And now that I'm on the other side of it, it feels great. So I'm back in Florida. My wife and kids live in Orlando, Lake Nona, Florida. And so I'm able to be home all the time with them. I'm doing pediatric neurosurgery fellowship at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital in St. Petersburg, Florida. So that gives me a year of just focusing on all kids.
Nice.
Tumors, spinal malformations and dysraphism, hydrocephalus, kids with big heads who have a lot of fluid in their brain, able to redirect that fluid.
Wow.
It's going to be awesome, man. So
awesome,
fired up about that. It's good to see my kids all the time. Good to see my wife all
get
the
back
time.
home to the family.
Yeah, man. Wake up next to her. It's just amazing, brother.
Yeah.
So, that's good. That's what's
good.
going on with me.
Awesome, bro. Good, man.
What about yourself? What's going on?
Not necessarily going to do neuroscience with pediatrics, but life is good. My stepson just graduated a few weeks ago. He's going to be headed to FIU.
Shout out.
So very proud of him.
Yeah.
He's going to go there to study biology and try to be an anesthesiologist.
Yeah. We got to get him plugged in.
Got to get him plugged in, man. Get him, some people that kind of nurture him and show him the ropes. Obviously here in the South Florida area, and my daughter just turned 2 not long ago, so that's been an experience, as you can imagine. You'll see too, because look, you've been on the road. Yeah. Now you'll be back home full time with the kids, man, and they are full blast at all times. But Sakima's doing really well, and then my youngest, Romeo, he'll be 13 weeks soon. So. The family's good, man. He's doing well. So I'm doing well as well. Just very excited for my summer. Yeah. We're going to go on a little vacation, over to Europe and visit in-laws, and then come back and just full blast with ACC football and get ready for the next college football season, man, which is a good time.
I know you got your schedule recently for college football season, so you're excited about that. Tell me about that vacation, though, because you guys are avid vacationers, man.
Avid, bro.
You guys get out there, you travel the world. You found somebody who loves to travel as much as you do.
Yes.
So
that was something that V and I definitely, matter of fact, when we first really got close, because we were still friends, and we went on a trip together over to Europe. And for those that don't know, my wife is from Germany. And so my in-laws still live there. Her brother lives there. Her whole family still is over there. And so my experience of going on those trips is much different than going with somebody that's just from the States like me, because we go into all the spots where it's just straight Italians, or if we're in Italy, or we go to Paris, like it's like the main spots, not the touristy spots. And so that experience has been really fun. But this summer, man, we're going to go to Germany to drop the kids off there. And then probably go to Sardinia in Italy. I know you and LaToya came out to our wedding in Sorrento last year. So, Italy's very special to us. Love Italy. But then maybe Portugal, certainly some spots in France, man. Yeah. So it's going to be fun.
That's awesome, bro.
Y'all taking any trips? Do you and LaToya get time off as doctors? Do you actually get a chance to
It's tough for her, right, as a pediatric dentist, where she's like the main provider there. She has a couple partners who work for her. But there's so many parents who are, I don't want to say needy, but they're a little bit needy. They're like, where's my dentist?
Right.
My kid's off from school.
I get that.
It's the summertime. Like, I'm planning on taking my kids to the dentist. They're in pain. Where are you? And so she tells them months in advance, hey, I'm going to take some time off. My husband and I, or my family and I, are going to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. So she's got to be very strategic with her schedule. Mine kind of works out sometimes where I have a little bit of break here and there. We like traveling as well. Yeah. Matter of fact, before I met Toya, she was traveling on her own independently all over the world. So she loved it. Nice. So we both had that mutual interest. Mm-hmm. We are going to East Africa.
Yes.
Coming up soon. Going to Mauritius. We're fired up about that.
Big money over here. You know what I mean? Okay.
you went to the Seychelles.
Nah. Big money. Okay. We ain't going to East Africa, bro. That's cool though, man.
But it's going to be awesome, man. We're fired up about it. Yeah. I keep telling people the last time we went to East Africa, LaToya came back pregnant, so we got to be careful. Be careful, brother.
You already got 4, dog. You went 2 for 2. You know what I mean?
We've been hitting every time. We've been going for doubles every time. Now it's maybe triples. So we got.
Are y'all still trying, or is that more?
Nah,
of a,
brother. Nah,
yeah, you good?
I mean, she has shut it down, so I've shut it down.
Good.
That's how it's working.
Understood.
But we're just gonna enjoy the culture. We love the culture immersion. Yeah. So whenever we go places, we like to just do tours and museums and historical things. Mm-hmm. We love the beach, and so getting out on some sort of excursion or some kind of adventure, food is obviously super important for us. Yep. And comfortable settings of hotels and safety, you know, like that comes with, we're not,
just be real. You bougie, bro. It's all good. 5-star hotels. I'm sure you staying in the Four Seasons, right?
Hey,
Four Seasons?
We are staying in Four Seasons.
Okay, Four Seasons in Mauritius. Okay, not bad, not bad.
But what we're not doing, we're not like doing those ventures into the inner part of the island or whatever.
Right. Sure.
Because I'll tell you this. All right, some quick story. Yep. So, you know, I'm from the Bahamas, right? Mm-hmm. And I would go back there every summer with my family. And it was so interesting. Sometimes we'd see, so the Bahamas is set up where on the east of New Providence, like the main island, is kind of where most people live. Okay. Most people who are low or middle income, I would say. The west part of the island is where you got money, and if you made it out west, it's like, oh, like you've risen, right?
Right.
You've done some things. And so I remember sometimes being with my cousin back home in the Bahamas in the summer, and these tourists would like take these little scooters, and they would be like, oh, hey, we want to adventure in the island. Like, where can we go? Can we go this way? Yeah. And this way was like where all the gangs, was like all the hoods. I'm like, nah, don't go this way, brother. Go that way. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And, good of you to do that, because you could have been the other way and been like, yeah, go ahead.
I could have set them up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was like, don't go this way, baby. Right. Yeah, but nah. So yeah, we stay very safe, very comfortable, good, man. Yeah. In good settings, and we enjoy ourselves.
Yeah, no, I think that's responsible. For real. I mean, we being tongue-in-cheek about it, but also, I mean, when you do travel, I mean, as much as it is to get fun, and again, I said we go to like non-touristy spots, it still ain't nothing crazy. You know what I mean? Still go out there. Because again, if you don't speak the language, if you're not from there, it's just like going into a wrong neighborhood here in the States. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't really know nobody out there, you probably shouldn't venture down. But I mentioned all that as far as, you know, just our families. And obviously, our viewers can learn that that's very near and dear to us. Mm-hmm. And so being that June is Father's Day month, I don't know if it's Father Appreciation Month. I don't know if that's a thing. It's just Father's Day. I think we only get a day, like the ladies. But I guess I wanted to just start out, man. Like, why is fatherhood important to you? Because that's a big emphasis in this episode that I felt like, and you also agreed that, you know, talking and having a conversation around fatherhood and why that's so important, and the different effects that can have with ourselves as fathers, but also our families and our kids. So to you three, like, why is fatherhood important to you?
Well, one, you know, Father's Day in and of itself, I saw this poll at some point on the internet that went over most popular or best holidays in America.
Okay. Father's Day will last.
It wasn't even made a BCS bowl game, bro.
Oh, man,
It was like a holiday bowl.
The early joint, okay.
Yeah, it was one of them early ones. It was December 14th game or something, man. I was like,
you get home for Christmas though. I mean, like, it was 6 and 6, but
man, no love for the fathers, baby.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know? So,
was it really that low?
It was low, brother.
Really?
Christmas, Mother's Day, New Year's, Easter, they were all top 5.
Wow.
Fathers was like 22nd or something.
Interesting.
Tough, brother. So, but no, in all seriousness, man, I think Father's Day and being a father is so important, so critical for the maturation of our next generation. Right. I think there's elements of what fathers do, what they say, their presence, their ability to, you know, nurture in maybe a different way than mothers can. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean it's any less valuable what a mother's does, but it says it's a sort of a two-pronged approach at raising and growing this next generation of leaders and hopefully successful people. That has to be a part of the equation. You know, for me, you know, my daddy coming from the Bahamas, his daddy from the Bahamas, my mummy's daddy coming from the Bahamas, we're all Bahamians, and I saw how important it was to have a father who was caring, who was kind, who was altruistic, who believed in you, and who pushed you further than you thought you could go. Yeah. Sometimes that love came off a little coarse with that older generation, but you knew at the end of the day, their mentality was, we want to get you to a place better than where we were. Yeah. And we want you to use the resources, mobilize these resources to get further than we ever got. Sure. And if our approach comes off this way, you know, that's where you got to take it. But but as you get older, you start to realize, man, there's some pearls and some gems that my daddy, my granddaddy were dropping to me that are beneficial now, and that I'm tapping into as I am a father of 4, as you mentioned. So super important, super critical. What about you?
I love that. You know, my dad, the same. Before I get into why it's important to me, similar to your dad, my dad's like my best friend, and so when I think about why or who I am as a man, it's really because of my father. You know, I mean, my mom as well certainly groomed me to be a respectful young man and be strong and be steadfast. And if I have a vision or a goal that I want to get done, I can get it done. That was something that my mom always pressed on me. But you know, my dad, man, I just feel like he really led by example, and he really tried to, like you said, keep me from some of those, those snare traps out there, right? Like getting caught up with girls as a young age, or getting caught up with drugs and alcohol and all that kind of stuff, and especially being an athlete. My dad coming from the 757 area, and for those that don't know, that's, Tidewater area in Virginia, as an athlete, he was exposed to a lot because he played varsity basketball when he was a ninth grade and all these kinds of things. So I would always hear these stories, and I met his friends too. And so I felt like when I was coming up, even my sister, who's a couple years older than me, he wanted to guard us from some of the things that were out there. And so when I would ask, hey, Dad, can I go to this party with such and such? Nah, man, you don't want to go to that. Da, da, da. And I would get so upset, you know what I mean? But when I'm 13, 14 years old, I didn't understand it. But now that I'm 34, I get it, because there's a lot of stuff going on out there that, it can be good or it can be very bad. You just don't know. And as a parent, you want to protect and garner your kids. And so while fatherhood, I think, is important to me, man, I think it's just really important to be present, because I know I have a stepson, for one, a teen stepson at that. And so compared to you, you have 4 young kids. Like, I have an older kid who is basically now an adult, and then I still have 2 babies. Yeah. And so the way that I discipline, or the way that I'm trying to focus my fatherhood, or the way that I'm fathering, is completely different in 2 lenses of it. But I see why it's so important to give those hard kind of conversations you kind of mentioned. Like, sometimes it comes off, seems like Dad is so hard on me. And I used to feel that same way about my dad. Like, I'm like, dang, why he don't let me do nothing? Or why he always coming to me about this and checking me about that? And if you don't have that kind of structure, it does show when you become older. I mean, you and I both can probably say we have teammates or former teammates or friends that, they didn't grow up with their father. Not that that was a bad thing, because a lot of them still have moved on and gone on to do amazing and great things and be great fathers themselves. Right. But I do feel like it's extremely important for fathers to be present and to be around. And even if you're not, the best dad in the sense of, trying to say, hey, man, this is the right thing to do. If you're giving bad advice, I put it that way. I still think it's important for the kid to grow up with their father, to see their father, whether they're in a good relationship with the mom or not. I don't think that matters. I still think you should be there for your kids, to have that responsibility to help teach them and just kind of guide them in the right direction, and also just teach them some of the things that you did or didn't do that was helpful or hurtful for your own life as well.
What's so important too, E, and you mentioned it, is, as you're being a father now, you're a father to basically an adult, yep. And then, 2 young kids, and we have 4 young ones. There's no real blueprint. Nobody's giving you sort of a formula on do step 1, then they'll do step 2, do step 3, and then they'll do step 4. Right? It's not it doesn't work like that, right? I mean, I think of my daily life, there are steps to how to do brain surgery. There are steps to do spinal surgery. There are steps to start a foundation, or maybe make some sort of initiative in the community that gets the community sort of civically engaged. But for this parenting thing, for young men, even though you had a great father, and I have a great father, even though we have those shining examples, when you're in the thick of it and you have to make these decisions, and your wife calls on you to be that father that is needed in the home, you're like, oh man, am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right choice? Who can check me to make sure that this is happening right? Like, who's checking my work? Almost like you're in school and like, I want to get my work checked. Like, what's
absolutely? You try to get feedback.
What is happening exactly? And then I guess the only sort of feedback you get is the product that you produce, and sort of the outcome that you get from your children. And sometimes it doesn't go the way you'd like it to go, but hopefully with persistence and with love and caring, and then leading with faith. And you and I are both very much into our faith. Yep. That's a huge part of our ability to parent, our ability to do it conjointly with our significant others, our loved ones, and to make sure that we include our extended family too. A big thing for fatherhood for me as well is the outside of the house influence that my daddy permitted us to have. I mean, we would go every summer back to the Bahamas to know our aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, to know our culture, to know our identity, know who we were, to have confidence, self-esteem. The Bahamas is 92% black. And so coming from the Bahamas and then growing up in southern New Jersey, where it was flipped, right? It was 10% black and maybe 90% white or other. Had to walk into those classrooms and walk into those settings feeling like we belonged here, and that we had a stake at the future success of those in our generation, and never felt less than or other. And so imbuing and instilling and injecting that confidence into us was purposeful and deliberate by my daddy and my mommy. And by putting our family around us and making sure that we were locked in, that was huge. And so I'm also proud to be the godfather of your son.
Yes.
And so I plan on injecting and infusing him with, and Kiki and your son Yeshai as well, with that sort of confidence that they come from great stock. You got God Daddy looking at you to make sure you're doing the right thing,
Checks
along
balances,
with Daddy,
man.
along with
absolutely.
and making it happen.
Yeah, and I think something that you said too that's important is that progress. But I think it's also important to remind ourselves and to other fathers out there that might be watching this, or other future fathers, right? Young men who maybe don't have kids and things like that. Sometimes that progress is delayed. And what I mean by that is when you're trying to tell your baby who at 2 years old, they kind of start to formulate a personality. For example, like Kiki, wide open, bro, wide open, loud as soon as she wakes up in the morning. But that's, she's always been that way. Yeah. And so now she's at a point where she'll try me, right, or try both of us. Yeah. And so you say, hey, Kiki, do this. No, it's like. And I didn't grow up with being able to say no to my parents. You know what I mean? Now, granted, again, she's a 2-year-old baby. Yeah. But it's still that balance between trying to discipline and say, you know what, okay, I still have to talk to her, even though she may not understand exactly what I'm trying to get her to do. I still have to talk to her and try to discipline her. So as she does grow, she starts to learn and starts to catch on. So I do think sometimes in the moment, as you say, because the thing about fatherhood too, bro, is like the marriage part for me at least is very smooth. Like marriage is fun. Like it still almost feel like we're dating if we get a chance to actually go out. Because again, when you have kids, you have to plan. But the toughest challenge as far as just even my manhood, once I really became a man, is when I became a father, is because you can't be selfish anymore. You're always responsible for somebody else. The little small movements of just waking up and, like when I was single, I could just hop on my bike and go for a bike ride, get a little workout in, come home, jump in the pool, do all these little things that I could do for myself. Nah, that's out the door. You know what I mean? Now, if you have help, you have grandmas or, a staff like a nanny and all that, you can maybe free up some more time. But I think it's important to mention that too, because so many times before you have children, you have this thought of like, oh, it's going to be like this, it's going to be like that. Or my kids are going to be like this, they're going to be like that. We have no idea. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you just want to be like hopeful and blessed that you have healthy children. That's the main thing. True. But I know from my experience, that was something that was somewhat of a shock in a way as a father. It was like, yo, this is a full-time job. And now I'm talking as a father, like for mothers, this is even more. You know what I mean? God bless our wives who are great mothers, and our own mothers, right, to take care of us when we were young. But I tell you what, as a dad, man, it's just a never-ending thing. And even if you and I both still have careers that we're in. You're a doctor. I'm on TV doing radio and stuff. Like it takes a lot of our time and our attention to still lock in and focus on those things to be great at what we do. But at the same time, you have to have that same type of focus and attention to your children, too, because that's important.
No doubt. I think also what comes with sort of that awareness that's there's young people who are depending on you and around you is your astuteness to things that you see outside, right? Like you're like, oh, okay, I saw this after school program, that my nurse talked to me about, or that I read about online, or my wife found this this real cool program that they can learn swimming lessons or something like that. Before, I mean, that stuff would just come and just go one ear out the other, right? Now you're locked in and hearing everything. How can I put situations around my children so that they can improve, so that they can get better, so they can have fun, so that they can continue to grow, meet those milestones? And so, yes, you are keenly aware of surroundings and what's happening around you. Something else I definitely want to mention with fatherhood too, brother, that I think is more of a societal standpoint, if we're looking from a 30,000-foot view, is there has been, especially in the Black, brown, minority cultures, this idea or this push that, maybe fathers aren't as important because for whatever reason you have disagreements between parents and then the mother sorts to take over as a primary caregiver and role. And then it's sort of, I can do it on my own. I'm independent. I have the resources.
You're saying if parents are co-parenting, basically, like the parents aren't together anymore.
They aren't together anymore, right? And so there's this wave or this lane that says, I'm independent, I'm strong, I can do it on my own, and I'm not in need of having a father around and or the man around to help support and take care of these children. The difficult part of that conversation for me is it sometimes pushes the notion or the idea that fathers aren't as critical to the progress of children, to the progress of their families. They don't need to be in the home. They don't need to be in the community because their role is not as significant as the mother's per se. And so it heightens the role of the mother. It sort of diminishes the role of the father. And when you keep hearing that resistance and pushback from society, as young men sometimes, they say, well, if they don't want me, society says they don't want me, then why do I need to be in this life of this young person, this life that I helped create? And I would rebuke that, right? I would refute that 100%. Same. 10 times out of 10, every day of the week, I would say that is not the attitude to have, regardless of what society may say, regardless of the independent stream of some people saying, we don't need you, we're good, we got it all, don't worry about it. Resist that, because your responsibility, your commitment to that life that you helped create is that.
Absolutely.
And the resentment, not only the resentment that you're going to get from that child as they grow up and be successful and say, where were you when I needed you? But also just internally, you need to feel like there's a part of you that's now in this world that didn't ask to be here.
Yes.
And now it's up to you to say, I want to form and see it through. I want to form this individual. I want to form and help develop this individual so they have all the success that they possibly can have. Man, and that's super critical.
That's heavy, bro. And I think that's great to say, because along with this topic is, again, just the ability for fathers to stand in the gap for their children. Yeah. And even if you don't have a great relationship with the mother, again, like there's situations where, you know, of course, kids happen and it's just hooking up and, you know, they're not together at all. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, man, like you said, if you created a child with somebody, it's your responsibility to still help take care and rear and, you know, raise that child. Because again, it's so important, even if the parents aren't together, I just think to have a voice of a father in a young person's life, man or woman, I think it's important, because even, let's be honest, some young ladies have daddy issues. Like that's a thing that's out there, right? Yeah. And, you know, people probably make light of it and make it like a tongue in cheek, like it's a funny thing, but it's real. You know, there's some real pain and suffering inside people who don't have both parents. And most would say, like you mentioned, I don't need it, or, you know, it wasn't as important. Nah, it's important. And I think truthfully, it's unfair. It's selfish. It's selfish just because you don't have a great relationship with the mother, and every situation is different. Like I don't want to be insensitive to that, and I also don't want to be insensitive because I'm around my kids, I'm with my wife. I also have a parent or household where I grew up with two parents, so I was very fortunate and very blessed. But I know that it's still important for the man to still be accountable, and even if you don't have a great relationship with the woman that you had the child with, your child needs you. Your child needs you, man. Like that is so important. And I think we can't stress that enough to the young men out there, because if you have the ability to create it, you also got to have the courage and the ability to also take care of it as well. And I think that piece is so important. And again, just going back to the selfish piece, you can't be selfish, man. It's not about you anymore.
It's not about you, brother.
You know what I mean? Like once you have kids, bro, it is not about you. And whether you have it by accident or whether you have it by a plan, either way, it's your child.
It's time to step up.
Got to step up.
Got to.
And I think, again, that's part of being a man. Yeah. And even when it gets tough, you know, you got to either band together with some brothers. And, you know, you and I have had conversations, especially early on when I became a father. I would vent to you about things. And, you know, as I've learned, for example, again, like if I'm parenting my teen stepson, who his dad was not in his life for 13 years of his life until I met him. Now, my wife V did an amazing job of doing both as good as she could as a single mother. He has a grandfather, you know, who's my father-in-law, who will be in his life. He has an uncle as well, but it's still nothing like having your dad in your life. And so he calls me dad. And I take that very seriously because, one, that's a huge responsibility that this young man trusts me enough to take care of his mother and have his brothers and sisters and all that kind of stuff. Because again, he's older. Like when I met him, you know, Yeshua was already somewhat in his ways because he was a teenager. But at the same time, he still wanted me to be that father figure toward him, even if he pushed back. Like if I say, hey man, go take out the trash. It's funny because I found myself having these conversations that my dad used to have with me, and he had to kick me in the butt sometime. I'd be in there playing a game or something like that. Hey man, didn't I say take the trash out, that kind of thing? Right. Like, yeah, I'll get to it. And like, man, turn that game off right now and go take out the trash. Found myself doing the same thing. But as much as it was annoying when I was 13, 14, I know how important it is now as a 34-year-old. Because again, I can take out the trash, but it's beyond that. Like, nah, that's your responsibility for the house. That's your chore. When I say go do it, go knock it out. You know what I mean? So again, man, I just think when you think of fathers, as daunting as the task may be, because it's very simple to make a child, right? But it's a very daunting and you know, a thing that in life that when you do, help raise your kids and you see them, again, I get to see him graduate high school like that. I was more happy for him than I think he was for himself, just because I really saw him like achieve something that, he didn't have the motivation to always do. He didn't always want to go to school and that kind of thing. Yeah. And so now he's going off to college and it just feels really good. I'm very proud of that.
You said something that I wanted to really hit on, because as young people, when you were 13, 14, you talked about you and your daddy, Mr. Manuel, you would butt heads at times, and I butt head with my daddy sometimes too. Around that same age, you start to feel yourself
a little bit, yeah.
Feel yourself, like I'm handsome, I'm getting attention from girls.
I'm getting recruited, I'm balling.
You can't talk to me. Come on, Daddy,
right. Yeah.
You don't know
all American status, all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
yeah,
man. I'm the man in school. Come on, baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, asking or instructing your son to take out the trash is more than just, take out the trash because there's trash in here. It's about stopping what you're doing, having the self-discipline to say, here is something that's giving me pleasure and joy. I'm going to stop that and give momentary delay of satisfaction and gratification for this game that I'm playing.
Right.
And I'm going to do something that is necessary of me for this family. I'm going to put my family before me. And it may seem small, and in the moment, we're not seeing that at 13, 14, 17 years old.
You don't understand it, yeah.
Yeah, but as you're older, like there's lessons to all of this. And so I think for us, our commitment to each other, our commitment to our families needs to be in everything that we instruct and coach and teach and help develop our children with our wives. There has to be lessons embedded in it so that the children sort of just naturally and organically become more disciplined, become more focused, become more punctual, become more sensitive to time management, become more philanthropic and caring, and thinking that service is not something that you just do to put on a resume. Service is something that is a part of your culture, is a part of who you are. You're a role, you will do service. You will commit to the least of these, to people who are marginalized, who are struggling, who don't have the afforded luxury of having two parents in their home, having a roof over their head. We talked about homelessness quite often in our last conversations on affordable housing. There's privileges that we have that your parents have helped provide for you.
Yeah.
Now it's up to you to see it through and to continue to be the kids and the young adults and eventually the adults and the leaders that we want through these lessons that come in these simple moments as taking out the trash.
Absolutely. Well, what do you think is the most challenging part from your own experience of being a father? Again, very invested in your career. Obviously, you still have to be a husband too to your wife. You know what I mean? Like, what do you think is the most challenging part of fatherhood so far?
Man, I think it is the humility aspect of it and not having it right all the time. You and I come from careers where we've had success since we started. We talked about football. As soon as we touched the football field, we were dominating.
Right.
I was. I'm sure you were
I
too.
was. Oh, hold on now.
Come on, baby.
Go
on, baby.
I'll speak for myself now, but yeah, I was right there with you. You already know.
Dominating, man. I mean, we were bigger, stronger, faster. We dominated.
Since
right?
5 years old.
100%.
Absolutely.
No doubt. No doubt. And so
that's a good point, man.
That has been successful right from the jump. Academics were always strong for us too, and I'm still having success, thankfully. God spare life in medicine and having good outcomes there. And so things that I've done in my professional vocations have been successful, have hit the mark, and has been great. Now, as a father, when Latoya and I were joking about this the other day, we have two kids right away, twins, and 2020, and they dump them on you and say, okay, now go be parents.
Yeah.
You're like, oof. All right, how do we do this?
Yeah, there's no blueprint to
how
it, like
you
said.
How are we winning at this, man?
Yeah.
And so when Latoya's got these ideas of, Meyer, maybe we should do this, or maybe you should do this for them, or maybe we should, if you want to get closer to your daughter, get on her level and play on the ground with her, so you don't look like the 6'2", 230-pound intimidating man that you can be. Right,
coming downhill,
And so I'm like, oh man, I got everything right in my life. Like, why'd I got to get down there and do that and play with him like that? But then it's like, it makes sense.
Yes.
I got to humble myself to realize that it does make sense. My other kids who love jumping on my neck and like sort of having these like rides on my neck and my shoulders and just run around and I chase them like I'm an ogre or something like that. they love it, right? It's stressful on my neck and my body, but I'm like, hey, I got to do it, right? And so humble myself, bring myself down so that I can be successful at this thing that I really, really want to be successful at.
Yeah.
Right? I have a mentor. His name is Gene McGee, good friend of mine, who says, Myron, fatherhood is going to be the best job you've ever had.
Wow.
And I was like, he's right. I love taking out brain tumors. I love saving lives. I love playing football when I did. Love all these things for sure. But there's nothing like seeing the joy in your kid's face when you walk through the door and they see Daddy, you know, and they're so excited to get some Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse toys, or they're excited to just play with you and just hold on to you, hug on you, and you feel them touching and rubbing your arm like, Daddy, what's your beard like? And I'm like, oh man, feels good, brother. So I would say that's probably for me. The humble part, bring myself down and making sure that I'm in line. That's so good.
And I can relate to that so well, because I think my toughest part of transitioning to fatherhood, so which was probably my biggest challenge, was just straight up not knowing what I was doing. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't grow up with, you know, baby cousins or a baby brother or sister. I was the youngest in my family. And even amongst all my cousins, I was one of the younger ones. And so diaper changes, how to put the clothes on the baby. I can remember getting all these boxes with the cribs and all the stuff that you had to kind of prep the nursery with before you have your kids. I can remember sitting there trying to fix this stuff for my kid, you know what I mean? Like, for 3 hours, like getting very, very frustrated and getting very, you know, impatient. Because again, a lot of times I would just call to hire somebody to come and do this stuff. But since it was my kids, I was like, nah, man, I'm gonna build this stuff myself. You know what I mean? I'm gonna do this. And so again, with this part of humility, I probably really should have called somebody and had them do it. But anyway, I got it done. But I noticed that, you know, because I was very much, before I had kids, I feel like I was very, like, it was a productive impatience that I had, because I was very, like, I'm super detailed. You know what I mean? Like, again, just coming from the world of playing sports, especially professional sports, is like, you tell me to have, like, if you get up on a dry erase board and you write down what you need me to do, boom, 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 I'm gonna do it, boom, 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 boom. So that's how my brain processes. And so when you have kids, it doesn't work like that, bro. It's like boom, 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 boom. Like, it's all over the place.
That's true.
And you just kind of got to go for the ride and hang on and not get frustrated. Because I think, again, that's why sometimes there are fathers who just don't want to stick around, because it's too hard. It's hard, bro. As much as everybody talks about, like, you know, there's a bunch of hard things in adult life. Once you have kids, man, that stuff is real. And so for me, that was probably my biggest challenge of like realizing, like, I don't know what I'm doing, and being open to asking questions. Like, because again, my wife had already had a son. So like, a lot of things I would lean on her and say, babe, what are your thoughts here? Or babe, just tell me exactly what you need me to do, and and then I just listen. Because again, I'm an athlete. So like, if you instruct me as a coach, as a player, I'm gonna go out and execute.
See ball, get ball, baby.
That's it, man. So I just feel like my biggest thing that I would say to any young men that are listening, and even to the young ladies too, you know, I think it's important to, you know, embrace that. You know, if you do see a father somewhere, or if you have a father in your life that's doing it good, man, just remind them. Because I think it's important for us to hear that. Because again, you said that's the least favorite holiday of the year. Bro, you know, it's Father's Day. You know what I mean? Man. And granted, the mothers do deserve more, because they put up with a lot more and they carry the baby. But
we should be higher than St. Patrick's Day, though.
Oh yeah, come on, man. That's a drinking holiday. You know what I mean? It's turning lakes green and stuff. Like, we gotta get a little bit more love than that. But
hey, something else I wanted to say too, that you probably do this too, actually, because you're super into fitness and, you know, stay in shape. Bro, when I'm struggling on a run, like on a workout, and I'm almost at the end, and I know I want to finish, I think about my kids, man. I promise. I'm
That's your why.
I want to stay here.
Yeah.
I want to be here for them.
Yes.
You know, so daddy's got to get his cardiovascular in shape so that I can play football with them, or walk my daughter down the aisle, or see my kids graduate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
And sometimes my wife will text me like, hey, do it for us. Do it for the babies.
Right.
And I'm like, all right.
Yeah. And that's all the motivation you need.
And
man.
I finish.
Yep.
And
it's funny how it works,
I finish
bro.
strong.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like your mind taps in.
Bro, you know, another great topic of that is just the accountability piece too. Right? Because to be an honorable husband, okay, when you know you have kids at home too, you have to also think about, you know, the standard that you're setting for them. And that's really important. Even if they're 2 or 3 years old, kids still understand, but they smarter than we give them credit for.
Sure.
And so I think also when you think about your children, and as you go out throughout, and I'm being real here, you know what I mean? Like, as you go throughout life, when you're traveling and things like that, and you know, you end up looking and maybe have opportunities to do things that you probably shouldn't do. But when you think about your children, you think about your wife, those kinds of things. And even for guys who don't have a marriage, you just think about your kids, man. You want to do the right thing by them. I think it's always important to make that right decision. You know what I'm saying? So
Definitely.
But I think that goes hand in hand too with another topic, and just why failure is important. And I think, not to say, you know, fathers are, you know, there's failures as fathers and all those kinds of things, because I'm sure they are a bunch out there. But I do think when you mentioned that topic a few weeks ago, I was like, man, that's such a good point, because the only way to really be successful is to fail. I genuinely believe that. Because if you just had the success and you didn't really have no hardship with it, or you didn't have, like, you know, any adversity per se, one, it doesn't feel as special. You know what I mean? Like when you kind of look back and like, man, I created all this. But I just feel like the failure part, even though in the midst of it, it's almost like it's the worst. It's terrible. You're looking around, you think everybody's looking at you, laughing at you, all these kinds of things. But when I look back on some of my own personal failures, I think like, man, that's what kind of built me to where I'm at right now. How do you feel about failure yourself?
Yeah, no, I think it's huge. And I think for anyone who says, I don't see failure, failure is just, it's not a part of my vocabulary, and they sort of dismiss it with sort of a flippant attitude, I think they're being untruthful. I think they're being dishonest. And I think they're misdirecting people to believe some sort of fantasy that's not real, that's not grounded in reality. I think failure makes you human. And I think it's okay to feel pain, to feel hurt, disappointment, to feel that you let yourself and others down who have been counting on you and looking at you for success or for an answer. I think it's all right. What I don't think is all right is staying and wallowing in that moment, right?
Yeah.
Of despair.
That's
where
good.
you sit there and you stew in it and say, I'm miserable.
Yeah.
Oh, woe is me, I'm miserable. You don't move forward. Like if I were to take the timeline of your life and say, okay, here's birth, and here's when I started walking, and here's when I started talking first, here's when I went to school, and here's when I had my failure. And then there's nothing else after that timeline. Right. You will look back on it and say, that was a shame. That's embarrassing.
What a waste. Yeah.
What a waste.
What a waste.
What a waste of this opportunity to live life. God gave us this ability to be out here and to serve and to do life and to do it well. And here I let this one failure define me, my career, and my trajectory. And so I've had failures in my life, man. I got cut from the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2012 after having a very good preseason. Yep. After all my teammates from Troy, Polamalu, Ryan Clark, Larry Foote, all of them saying, man, you out here balling, man. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. My boys are saying I'm doing well, but somehow I don't get on. That was disappointing. Even the front office staff was like, man, you're playing very well. We're not worried about you because you can be president one day or you can be a doctor one day. I said, well, I want this right now. I don't want to do that, right?
Like, don't judge me based off of what my future aspirations are.
Yeah. You got other options, so we can let you go because this other guy doesn't have any other options. So
wow. Is that what it came down to?
It was unbelievable, brother.
Wow.
Yes. And so it hurt me, and it hurt the people around me. And I was like, man, I am not living up to expectations. People who have seen me play since I was 5, 6 years old have saw me dominate on this field. I was an All-American in high school, #1 ranked player on ESPN, All-American at FSU. Took a year and a half off to go to Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar, came back and still got drafted.
Amazing, man. Yeah.
Came back, played the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, where I started off the week as a third-string safety, dominated all those boys, and became a starter at the end of the week by game time. So clearly I still have the talent to play, but yet it's not working out, E. And I felt like I failed, and I was like, this hurts. This is tough. This is rough on me. It was very difficult to kind of get through that moment. But we talked about this before, having my mummy come and speak life into me, praying and understanding that this can't be the end of it, right? If the NFL says no, medicine may say yes.
Yes, another door opens.
Community may say yes, right? My family's going to say yes.
That's good, man.
Being a speaker may say yes. Mentoring people may say yes. Being an author may say yes, right? So there's other opportunities that, thankfully, by the grace of God and by the grace of my parents, developed in me early so that when this door closes, as you mentioned, the other options would open up. Yeah. And now it's just about getting myself up, picking myself up, brushing myself off, saying, let's learn from this failure. Let's know that this pain felt bad, and let's not feel this again, but let's move forward into our next phase of life.
So good, man. I think this ties back to fatherhood because as a father, you usually kind of start thinking like, I'm going to make the plans and this and that, but you can't disrupt God's timing.
Yeah.
And I think as I'm listening to you say that, I think that's the most important part here is for fathers and for anyone listening, like, God has, a certain time for us to do all these different things. Like even the aspirations that we have of, being an NFL player and winning Super Bowls and throwing touchdowns, you making interceptions and all that kind of stuff in your position as a safety. Because I had a similar situation. Like sometimes you would assume like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play 12, 13 years in the league and I'm gonna lead this and do that and da-da-da-da. Because I was a first round pick to Buffalo. And even my own failures, that not just to have to do on the field, but I'll touch on them first, is like, sometimes you just assume, oh yeah, this is what's going to happen for me. But again, God will take you down a different path where you do face. And look, my time in Buffalo, man, like that was my first time of real adversity. And I'm talking about real adversity. I might have failed a test, not failed, but like I might have got a D on a test or didn't do well in a game as a ninth grader or whatever. That's not real adversity. I'm talking about real life adversity is when, you get benched, after 4 games in your second year as a first round pick. But the team is 2-2. And you lose the game by 4 points or something like that, less than a touchdown. And I can just remember that time, man. I'll never forget it. We played Houston, and I sat in my locker after that game. And at this point in my career too, I was still very young. I had come off some knee injuries the year before, and I just was so focused on trying to prove to myself that I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be a first round pick. I'm supposed to be the starting quarterback. All these different things, and so I'm not really focused on the process of maturation or the process of development and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to win. I want to win right now. Right. And I can remember that season we started off 2-0. We beat Chicago. We beat Baltimore, I believe, and then we lost to the Chargers, and then we played Houston and had I'd say a rough game. Looking back on it, and even now as I cover, college sports, I look at somebody that had a similar game. Like, yeah, I mean, if you still had a chance to win at the end, it's a solid game. Now, was it your best performance? Of course not. Right. But I say all that to say, man, that was a moment of where I felt real failure in the sense of a situation or a circumstance around me was out of my control. Now, if I had a chance to play that 5th game, who knows? I would maybe went out there and threw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns and turned the page and we rolling at that point. Right. But I remember Coach Doug Marrone had called me into his office and he said, hey, look, we're going to go a different direction right now. I think it's important for you as a young player in your second year to get some time to develop and to learn from a veteran quarterback. We had Kyle Orton on the team at the time. And in that moment, I saw it as okay, this sounds like we have a plan. Sounds like this is a way for me to continue to learn and maybe do take a step back. I didn't like it, all right, because I knew what would come with that, this you getting benched. I didn't like that. It was what? But then once I kind of left the room and thought about it, I was all right, maybe this is the best thing for me. Again, kind of going with God's timing. And so I don't think I truly believe that in my heart, though. And I allowed that to be something that really did affect me in a negative, to where then I started getting depressed and I started, doubting myself. I started not taking care of my body like I would have if I was a starter, not eating the right foods, And again, just being very, very transparent here. And looking back on that, what I was considered for myself at that time a failure, it helped me transition into something else. It helped me transition into being a college football analyst. It helped me transition into being a father, being a husband, being a servant leader, being out in the community and giving back and offering wisdom to others and, just kind of put me in a different role that, again, I thought, okay, I'm going to still be here, but God just had a different plan for me. And I think it's really important for us to look at failure as a way of, I'm actually getting ahead. Because I think within my failure, there's some things I probably just wouldn't have tried. There's some things I probably would not have learned. Imagine you just go throughout your entire life and you're always successful at everything. Yeah. Not to say what a boring life, but you kind of want some excitement. You kind of want some hardships. You kind of want some heavy nights. You got to cut your teeth,
baby. You got to cut your teeth.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And so I look back on that, man. I'm like, dude, I can go through anything. Because look, after that happened, I still played 3 more years in the league and really could have kept still playing. I got cut by the Oakland Raiders years later, and that was another situation. This was going to my 6th year. You remember this?
You were balling, too.
Bro, I had one of the best games in my career in the 4th preseason game, kind of make or break game to see who was, going to be the backup behind Derek Carr. And this was Coach John Gruden's first year as the head coach for the Raiders, I guess the second time. And so, or whatever time, this was 2018. And we play Seattle. I start, bro, balled out, dog. Yeah. 23 or 27.
I remember.
200-something yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, I come out the game, I'm talking to Beast Mode on the side, yeah, dog, we good, man. We straight. You know what I mean? I took care of it, you know what I mean? That kind of deal. Yeah. And all those guys were really proud of me, too, because they saw I was, going through the preseason, battling for that backup job. Yeah. And so I remember 2 days later, I get called in, thinking maybe I'm about to get an extension or something, you know what I mean? Hey, man, you around? Can you come in? GM wants to talk to you. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I'll be back. And I took a weekend off and went to LA. Came back, and then my agent had called me before I got on the plane, and he was like, hey, did they let you know that they were going to cut you? And I was just like, bro, what? I can just remember my heart dropping. And so, again, another moment of failure. And I'll even be real, man. I remember coming back to the facility, going through that exit meeting, your athlete iPad and all that kind of stuff. Hey, man, bring your iPad. So I went through that and talked to the OC, talked to the quarterback coach. Quarterback coach now is actually the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, Coach Callaway. Yeah. And so... it was one of the hardest moments of my life, man. Seriously, it was one of the hardest moments of my life. And even before I left the stadium, Coach Gruden actually didn't say nothing to me. And I was like, hold on. Like, I spoke to all these other coaches, but I didn't get a chance to speak to the head coach before I left. And they tried to walk me out. I was like, no. I turned around, went and knocked on Coach Gruden's door. Like, hey, Coach, just, want to say thank you for the opportunity, da-da-da. Because I wanted to, like, how you not going to say bye? You know what I mean? Like, I thought we were cool.
Yeah.
And so I go in his office, and I remember he was acting like he was on his computer or whatever. And I said, hey, Coach, man, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity. Because I didn't want to have, truthfully, I thought I was going to get signed like a few days after that because I had that good of a preseason. I was like, yeah, I'll get signed somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, I wasn't necessarily that butthurt, to be honest, but I still wanted to say goodbye to him because I didn't like that the decision was made. And so I just remember him not really giving me an explanation either, just like, hey, man, you're a good man. Like, you're a good guy, man, da-da-da. So I was like, man, come on, bro. So anyways, moving on, bro. Like, I just remember that being a failure for me, and it opened me up to going back to LA. I was training, and I was able to then see another side of life that didn't, have football in it. That was my first September, October of not being on the team ever. That was very weird for me, but at the same time, I enjoyed it. If I'm being honest, I enjoyed, the free time. I enjoyed living in LA at that time. I was single, and not even just like dating life, but just in life in general. I was going on hikes. I was, doing stuff, going to the beach. Like, I was enjoying myself.
There's
I didn't have pressure.
There's ways, and when I'm hearing you say this, there are ways that God protects us from certain things that you're not even aware that He's protecting you from, right? Or setting things up for you in the background, sort of moving the chess pieces around for you to eventually succeed in something that's your next career, right?
Yep.
So he closes this door and says, you had a great career, you had a great game, and for whatever reason, people
went a different direction.
To you in that moment, man, this is painful. This hurts. This stings. This burns me. Like, I wanted this. I've been wanting this, and I've given a lot to this game. I've invested a lot: time, energy, effort, money. My physical body has been given to this game, and yet you're telling me no to this. But in the background, there were shifts and things being made for you to be successful, to be where you are now. Like you said, to have your family, to have moved back to Florida, to have your health, right? To not have chronic traumatic encephalopathy, right? TBI, knee injuries, whatever the case may be. You are a healthy young man who's able to go out to the links and play golf, and do all the wonderful things, ride your bike, do all your wonderful things, man. So I think failure is a way for, like you said, it's a way for you to learn. It's a way for you to feel that pain. It's a way for you to grow and hopefully propel you into the next phase, which is great. I also think that we shouldn't shy away from failure in the sense that people who don't think they fail don't care enough, in my opinion, right? They're like, oh, this just happened. Okay, oh, well. And just keep moving, like it brush off their shoulder. No. If you care about something deeply and you really want something and you've worked for it, then you should feel a little bit disappointed that you didn't achieve that goal. Because then you really didn't give everything you got. Right. There was no energy. There was no effort expended.
It's supposed to hurt. Yeah, it's supposed to hurt. Yeah.
And so this is a natural feeling. And I just want to continue to push that for those listening, young people, student athletes, whoever. If you do run into situations where you fail or feel that you've missed the mark, know that it's natural. It happens. It happens to the best of us. And it's a way to reignite, reactivate your senses to who you are, to who you ought to be, and then continue to push forward, man.
Another layer to that, too, is when you do fail, because I agree, like, if you're, for example, like in our football career where we had a moment of failure, right? I think it's also important to notice when it is time to go into something else. Because sometimes you can fail, you keep failing, you know what I mean? Like, you have to look up, be like, hey, fam, like, maybe this just isn't the road for you. Right. And I'm not using football as an example, but I think that's important as well, because, sometimes we have these dreams and aspirations that God is trying to show us a different way, a different window. Yeah. Like, even throughout that time, when I did go back to LA and I was training, waiting to get picked up, I took an audition with ESPN, just randomly. Like, I was not planning on going to TV. I still wanted to continue to play football. And I did it. Didn't want to really do it at first because I didn't know a lot about it, but I did it. I did pretty well with it. It was talking ball. And then I got called back for a second audition. And I looked up and I had an opportunity to take a job offer later that summer. But I got re-signed by Kansas City that spring, but I kind of created two opportunities for myself. But I knew it was time. You know what I mean? Let alone I did have some knee injuries that kind of reminded me it was time too. I was going to ice and hot and ice tub just to get through practice, bro. Like it was like
rough.
I was like, I don't know if I can go 17 weeks with this, but
your eyes were open though.
But my eyes were open to another opportunity. And that's what I'm trying to get at. Is sometimes when you do have that failure, man, like also keep your eyes open to when another door is opening for you, no question, instead of blocking it off and maybe you missed a blessing right there.
Absolutely. And the way I look at it too is, in that moment, it may not show up for you, but it may manifest itself down the line. So I look at football now as a game that I loved. I tell my wife all the time, man, you married a football player. She's like, no, I married a neurosurgeon. I'm like, man, I was a ball.
By trade, though, you a football player. We put scrubs on, but still some soda pads in there.
But I'm like, right. But now as a brain surgeon, dealing with traumatic brain injury, concussions, former teammates who come to me and ask me, hey, man, how do I keep my brain health where it ought to be so I can remember my kid's name so I can enjoy life and not have chronic headaches or brain fog or fatigue or other things that may, get in the way of my processing of the world. Now I see myself connected back to the sport of football, something that I love, something that said no to me in 2012, 2013, now is saying yes to me to invest in young people with head trauma safety, to talk, like you said, talk on TV about mental health and about concussions that happen around the league, to mentor young football players and young collision sport athletes around sports, to bring in the chief medical officer of the NCAA to talk to Harvard, the whole Harvard student athlete and neurosurgical community about, what we're doing now with traumatic brain injury, concussions, and how we're trying to move it forward. So it's like, yes, it said no to me before. Now, 10, 13 years later, we are in the fray and in the mix of the science that I love doing every day and the sport that I enjoy doing my entire life. So it comes back.
Beautiful marriage, man.
No doubt.
Well, another part to it too is, how do you think, or why do you think it's important to have a support system around you too? Because when you do come out of a failure and you start transitioning into something else, or even if you're going to try again at whatever it was that you might have failed at the first time, do you agree that it's really important to have a support kind of group around you or support staff around you to help you?
Well, back to that point that you made about having your eyes open and being aware and astute to what are the opportunities that may come from this post-failure moment that you're in, this post-failure experience, you have to have people that can objectively look at you and say, okay, I know who you are. I know where your priorities are, E. I know what you've told me, right? Because in the moment of feeling disappointed, you may not be as rational. You may not be as clear thinking, right? Yeah. And when you were in that clear thought of mind and in that good state, that state of euphoria or just a state of normal equilibrium, you were saying things that were quite rational. And you might have said that to your mother, your father, your best friends, or whatever the case may be. And then when that moment hits, you need somebody to tap you on the shoulder and say, you know what you told me when you were done playing football that you want to do this? How about think about this? Right? Because those people can sort of look at it with a very transparent, clairvoyant view and kind of help push you to where you ought to be. And so iron sharpens iron. We talk about it all the time. Having someone like yourself in my life, and hopefully I'm able to be that for you, being best friends and being close, being able to sort of strengthen each other and challenge each other at all times, even in the moments when we as ourselves are stuck in the thick of weeds and we can't see it, but you from the outside says, I see a little bit of a better vantage point than you do. This is where you ought to be. Let's go there.
It's a great point, because when you come out of that failure, a lot of times people would then start to isolate themselves. And start to say, maybe this friend is looking at me sideways, or maybe this person don't want to talk to me no more. Or maybe I shouldn't reach out to this coach I met years ago, or maybe I shouldn't reach out to this professor that I talked to years ago to help me in this new venture that I'm trying to get into. And I think, again, I would refute that, bro. Like, I think that's something that I learned as well. Is like, man, still reach out to those people and stay locked in with those people too, because they're going to have that 30,000 foot view and see an opportunity or see something that you could do to help yourself that you don't see because you're in the midst of it. Once you're in the fray, you in the middle of it, you're just focusing on trying to get yourself out of that hole. You're trying to make sure that you're not a failure. But sometimes it just happens. There's circumstances that are around you that are out of your control, and it leads to what you might consider a failure. But to have that supporting group, man, I think is so important, because it gets you out of it, but then it also opens you up and opens up your mind to another opportunity. Which I think is really smart, man.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, look, I think this was great. We obviously touched on fatherhood. We certainly have touched on failure. So to wrap it up, man, I'll give you a fresh takeaway from this episode.
Yeah, brother. My fresh takeaway from this episode is a step up, step forward to your responsibilities, young men, old men, men in general, young men, whoever you are out there. When the world tells you run away, when the world says, man, it's okay to sort of take a back seat, be a recluse, let's not have the responsibility of being a father, being in life, and being present. My challenge to you is to step forward and step up. That's when you need to bow up your neck, right? You need to put your chest out and say, I'm here. Set your jaw in line, baby. I'm here. I'm here, right? Like, I'm a vital part of this nuclear family, right? I'm a vital part of this next generation of future leaders, and I want to have my impact. and I'm going to push my way into that impact.
Yeah.
I'm going to press upon that family that I need to be there. I need to be present. I need to be accountable. I need to teach. I need to instruct. I need to guide. I need to develop, because frankly, I mean, this may sound a little bit quixotic, but the world is counting on you, right? The next generation, when we're all old and sort of needing assistance, and there's going to be other people at the table.
Yep.
These people at the table have to have the right frame of mind and the right set of values to make those decisions to lead us forward. And so don't step away from that challenge. Step up, step forward, move forward, press on. We need you, fathers.
Great stuff, man. My first takeaway is do not fear failure. Do not feel failure. If you have a goal set in mind, if you have something that you want to be, if you have something that you want to achieve, like you said, man, set your neck. And I'm talking to men and women, because you can really achieve it, but there's just going to be some pitfalls that come around the way. There's going to be some things that derail you. There's going to be some things that delay you. You look up and make this not go on a timing scale that I have for myself. But there's some beauty in failure. There really is, because there's a callus that you kind of develop when you fail or when you don't do good at something, right? And I think when you always have success, it's great, it's nice. Everybody patting you on the back. But you really get to feel like, you really get to see who you really are. And you also get to really see who's for you when you have those failures. Who are the ones that are going to come to your assistance to help you? Who are the ones that are going to give you that hand down and still try to bring you up and remind you that you're still a winner? And so I think that's my biggest takeaway from this show, man, is, not being afraid of failure and, just rolling with the punches, bro. So this is good stuff, man. Well, look, we appreciate y'all for joining us. Thank y'all for lending your ear to us. Continue to stay locked in with the Freshman Podcast. Y'all be good.